looking forward to this interview with Jack Butler of Skadden. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Good to be here this morning.
Since the last time I saw you, which was months and months ago, the whole American Airlines merger took place, and now we're a few months past the merger. Tell us what your historical perspective is, like, if you could call it that, like looking back right now about the deal.
Well, you know, I think American stands for a lot of things. I mean, it's an example of what happens when all stakeholders come together, including labor, to work cooperatively towards a deal. I think it's turned out to be a great deal economically for people. I think it's in the bankruptcy world or restructuring world, it also stands for the proposition that you can do great things if you explore strategic alternatives in a Chapter 11 case for the stakeholders that are in that case and come up with what's best for them. In this case, creditors are getting back everything they invested plus a little more. Based on the trading prices today, it looks like Americans' pre-petition equity holders will end up owning something like a quarter of the new merged company. So it's been quite a result.
That sounds very successful to me. A lot of this is uncharted territory. So what did you guys as an industry really learn from this merger, and how will it affect you, do you think, other acquisitions going forward?
Well, I think people understand that mergers are difficult in distress situations, and you have to really get a lot of people to come together to work on it, a lot of different stakeholders. You have to have the economic stakeholders agree with employees and management and potential acquirers. It's a tough juggling act, but it's worth it if that transaction is the best deal to get done. And I think what you have to do in cases increasingly is you have to figure out what are the range of alternatives that really make some sense, what can actually be executed, what's feasible, and then try and go for that which maximizes value. Had we not done this merger in Chapter 11, there's a very good chance that pre-petition equity holders, and I didn't represent them, right? I represented the creditors, but pre-petition equity holders may have had nothing, and now they have a quarter of a merged company, the largest airline in the world.
Incredible.
And so I think that's it explains to you right there what the headline is. If you're able to keep value for current stakeholders.
So Jack, as you were working through this transaction, what were the biggest hurdles that you faced, and were they what you anticipated in the very beginning that they would be?
Well, there's a number of hurdles, right? I mean, early on, I'm not sure that the creditors and the management team, the company, saw things eye to eye. They were embarked on a standalone restructuring, which of course is necessary. You have to put that together. In order to be able to look at an alternative, you got to have a base plan, it's got to be feasible, and it's got to work, right? So they were doing the right things, and they were doing a huge amount of work restructuring their fleet and working on a lot of other transactions. But they had some real difficulties in their labor relations. And that's where I think the committee was able to step in and to help and to be productive at the end of the day. I think we were able to keep everyone together, economic interests, labor interests, all, vendors, everyone sort of stuck together. And I think that's an important lesson of what committees can do if they work as a unified group as opposed to getting splintered off for their own parochial interests.
I know this is a very unique situation, this particular merger. Using a crystal ball, do you foresee more of this looking, way down the road?
Well, I think there certainly can be mergers in Chapter 11. I think that's one form of a strategic transaction that works. Sometimes a sale is the right answer. Sometimes new investment's the right answer. Sometimes a standalone is the right answer. And I think what increasingly, I think you're finding people do because of the cost of Chapter 11, because of the uncertainty of Chapter 11, an awful lot of investors these days are trying to figure out what they can sort through before they ever show up in a courtroom.
So what's different, though, these days than, say, 5 years ago?
Well, it's funny. Someone told me recently, I heard the quote that, history doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And I thought that really makes sense because I've been doing this for over 30 years. And we were doing prepackaged transactions, pre-negotiated deals back, in the 1980s, right after the bankruptcy code was adopted. And so it's not as though the techniques that we're using today are terribly different than what we used before. I think people are being very creative and innovative today, trying to stretch the edge of the envelope to fit some of these techniques that reduce cost, provide more certainty, get things done quicker, provide more transparent outcomes. Those are all important goals, and I think people are trying to figure out how to do that as effectively as they can and are working pretty diligently to try to sort through that. So I think you're going to see in the short term shorter cases with hopefully more transparent outcomes.
All about change and keeping up with the times. And speaking of which, I believe I was reading in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal something about your career change.
Yeah, I am actually leaving Skadden Arps at the end of the quarter, and joining Hilco Global as its Executive Vice President in May of this year. It's something that is exciting for me and really is sort of the core of what I've done my whole career. I've always been about finding value in deals. Hilco Global is one of the now sort of global leaders in finding value anywhere on the left-hand side of the balance sheet. It's a very versatile organization, 20 business units, operates in 11 countries with management teams on the ground there, 500 employees direct and 10,000 indirect employees. It's a great organization, world-class people, and I'm looking forward to coming in and being able to help make a difference.
Well, I would say I wish you continued success, but I know that's going to happen, so there's no need to. Jack, so great to see you
Thanks.
again.
Good seeing
so
you.
nice
Take
to catch
care.
up with you. Take
All right.
care.
Bye now.